Hello, BookTube. I had errands to run today. Errands of a very, very specific kind. I made a list on my phone's note feature of very specific errands to run. One of them you've seen before was that printed checky poo that I got in the mail. It turned out I strapped Frida's harness on and we went out for walks, and I detailed some of those walks to bring us near all of the ATMs in the vicinity, and it turns out none of those ATMs actually have the function to deposit a check. I didn't know there were multiple kinds of ATMs, but I guess some of them are the down market kind, don't have the ability to deposit a check. Very annoying. So I realized once I was done with all of those forays that I would have to take that check to an ATM about 5,000 miles away. I would have to walk it there and deposit it that way. So a number of you, I'm sure, were trying to be helpful. You're a wonderful group of people. You were trying to be helpful. You were suggesting that, well, I could just download my bank's app and take a photo of the check with my phone and do it all online. You're made of sterner stuff than I am, that's for sure. I would not do any of my banking information online, not in a million years. And today's the price that I pay for that kind of Luddite thinking, because I had to walk for 5,000 miles to get to an ATM. And there were a couple of other errands involved, one of which involved stocking up on groceries, long-term, non-perishable groceries, that sort of thing, just a cupboards full of them. And I told myself, when I was settling the bean and I was leaving Hyde Cottage, I told myself, you don't need any more books. You're going to have resolve to bring peace to the war that has afflicted the OGBG, with even drawing in previously innocent non-combatants like Bill Rutenberg, for peace sake. I thought, you will pour water on the oil. You'll pour oil on the water of this conflict, and you will, when you pass by charity shops and thrift shops that have big, bustling book sections, you will say, "Get thee behind me, Satan," and you will not even go in. You will not even go inside. I had errands to run today, and they were non-bookish errands. Mainly two. Just go, get them done, and come back. Come back, I might add, to Hyde Cottage, which, as you might be able to see, this is not one of those Zoom electronic backgrounds. That's actually real, and Hyde Cottage is full of books. Full of books. In addition to which, about half a dozen of you have been incredibly generous in sharing your ebooks with me. Just incredibly generous. I put out a call a couple of months ago for people to send me EPUB or PDF files, or even Mobi files will work on my Kindle just fine. It won't work on any other device, but it'll work on Kindle just fine. And about half a dozen of you have been incredibly generous. Just hundreds and hundreds of ebooks. And more are coming on at a steady clip, so that between that and all the books that are already here, and all the books that are free online, if I feel like something brand new, it's the work of 2 minutes to get something free. Between all of that, and also the fact that my book acquiring, thanks to the hostilities of the OGBG, have been through the roof lately, I thought, you are not even going to look at the books. If you look, you will fall prey to temptation, so you're not even going to do it. So I did the banking errand, and that was a little bit fraught. I got to, it's a little bank branch, once had 3 tellers and a bank manager on the inside. It's been closed since February, early March. There's been no employees in that building at all, just 2 ATMs in the front. But it's an actual branch of the bank, so I knew that the ATMs there would be the full dress kind. They would have all the functionality. It's a little bit sad not to have any tellers there. Those tellers are just out of work. It's not like they were put somewhere else. They were just told, you don't work here anymore. So I got to the door of that little office, that little branch of the bank, just as a gnarled, crabby, cane-wearing old guy was also getting to the door. And I took a step back, and he opened the door and took a step inside the foyer where the ATM machines were, and then leaned out of the open door and said, "Well, 2 of them in here," to tell me I don't have to wait outside because there are 2 ATMs and he's only going to use 1. And I said to him, I don't care how many ATMs there are, because you're not wearing a mask. Only when I said it to him, I used 4 adjectives before the word mask, each in increasing volume until when I got to the word mask, when I was finished with the adjectives and I got to the word mask, I was saying it so loud you could have heard me 5 or 6 streets away. He recoiled a step because I was not just yelling at him by the time I got to the word mask. I was screaming at him by the time I got to the word mask. Because we're in the middle of a raging, out-of-control pandemic with millions of people infected and hundreds of thousands of people dead. And we're in September, and this has been true since March, and this guy's not wearing a mask. And he was looking at me like, what is this word? Mask? Why? It's not Halloween. Why would I wear... The cute space alien I just dropped in from another dimension, what's new in this world routine, might have been a little bit cute in the second week of, and you can add those 4 adjectives, March. In the second week of bleep, 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 March, that act, that routine, that lie might have been interesting. In the first week of September, with mortuaries full of dead people, of dead Americans, it's not funny anymore. It's not cute anymore. It's not anything I have to respect anymore. So he was standing there holding the door open for me, and I told him, you're not wearing a mask. Get inside or come outside, but don't talk to me anymore. And he went inside and did his business, and then came back out, and then I went in and deposited my checky poo. So it was a little bit of agita. And then I went to a local grocery store, a grain and feed shop. There were a couple of things that I wanted. I knew I couldn't get them all in one place. So I went to one place first to get a couple of things. And BookTube. I know the manager of this first grocery related place that I was going. I know the manager. I've known him for a long time. And his office is right, the door is always open. It's right within sight of the row of registers. So I walked over to his office. I wasn't going to linger. He was wearing a mask. I was wearing a mask. I just wanted to say hi. I might scream, literally scream at someone who's just walking around without a mask. When Massachusetts had to bleed blood out of its businesses to get its numbers down as low as they are. And this guy is out there wanting them to go up again. But anyway, I wanted to be civil. So I went over to his door. I knocked on the open door and said, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. And he, from behind his desk, he said, yeah, it's great. Glad you're doing okay. Anything I can help you with? You must be here for something specific. I had a couple of things. I said, oh no, I'll bother somebody else about it. That's all. And I looked down on the floor of his office. And there were 2 boxes full of books. And like a fool, instead of saying, yeah, well, it's been great, my love to the wife, and leaving, instead, like a fool, I said, what are these? And he said, oh, yeah, we had a big donation drive, and a whole bunch of people brought in books, and I did too, and nobody wants these. So I was just going to throw them in the dumpster in the back. But if you want them, you want any of them, feel free to take them. Why is it that the book gods put these things in my way? I have a friend who runs a church in Boston. He will routinely tell me, well, if you want these, just take them, because I'm going to throw them away. Otherwise, they're just going to sit here in the basement. Why do the book gods hate me so? So I went through his boxes, and I got a bag full of books. On a day of errands that were non-bookish, in which I was telling myself I would not get any books. These are going to be my last secondhand books for quite some time. I thought we'd go through them together. And the first 2 are Penguin classics. They'll go on this wall. They'll go on my Penguin wall and eventually be part of our Daily Penguin. And they're both by H.G. Wells, and they're very similar books by H.G. Wells, even though I believe their publication was separated by almost 40 years. One is The Shape of Things to Come. And this is a fairly substantial novel. H.G. Wells he's a weird example of, he's not a talented writer. He's a talented thinker, a talented futurist. He's never not interesting. But in terms of prose, his prose is not all that good. And he's a weird case because he was incredibly prolific. You could list the titles of his full-dress books for a long time, even though he's only known for a tiny handful of them. He's known for his immortal science fiction, but he's not known for stuff like this. Most people would not know that he wrote this book. And this is, it's a man who dies, but who kept a sort of prophetic dream book about what the future would be like. And it gives H.G. Wells a chance to live in the future, to describe the future. And he does. And it's absolutely fascinating. As much fascinating for what he got wrong as for what he got right. In all of his looks at the future, and keep in mind, if you look through his works, you will see him contemplating the future many times. Most famously, maybe not most systematically, but most famously would be The Time Machine, where his character goes to the future and as well as the past. But the predictions in here are stunning. Some of them are interesting, but obviously wildly off base. Others are a little bit scary. He predicts the Second World War. He predicts a largely mercantile and financial future, or largely inhuman future. Whenever H.G. Wells envisions a future, and he envisioned quite a few of them, about half a dozen in his publishing career, it is always a horrible place, a place you wouldn't want to live. And this is no different. And this Penguin Classic is edited by Patrick Parender, with an introduction by the great science fiction lexicographer and researcher John Clute. And I have not read it. I have read The Shape of Things to Come, but I haven't read this Penguin. Well, the stuff involved with it. I haven't had the Penguin experience of reading this. And the other one is another book that is specifically along the same lines, The Sleeper Awakens, which is about a man who falls into a kind of suspended animation and wakes up in the early 22nd century. And again, it gives H.G. Wells a chance to just imagine what the future will be like. Both of these books do that, and they have a lot in common. I am, in honor of the serendipity of finding these things today, I am going to read these back to back, so that the overlaps and the differences will just jump right out at me. I haven't ever read these two books back to back, so that would be fascinating. And these are the type of H.G. Wells novels that don't appear in the typical big H.G. Wells anthologies, where you get The Invisible Man, War of the Worlds, Food of the Gods, First Man on the Moon, but you don't get these. And they're every bit as interesting. So, and I like H.G. Wells as an author. I would never make any claims for him as a literary figure, but I like him as an author. Then this next one, I have read this. I have very much enjoyed it. I don't have a copy, and I didn't have a copy, and so I grabbed it. It was free. These were all free. That's no excuse, I know. This is from a while ago. This is from the 1970s, maybe 1980s, 1988. This is a translation by Helen Craig McCullough of The Tale of the Heike, a great Heian period epic that is a Japanese epic that is just incredible to read. It's often been the shorthand for how to characterize these things has been that the Tale of Genji is the Heian period Odyssey, and that the Tale of the Heike is the Heian period Iliad. That this is vast armies, competing families, warfare, violence, brutality, whereas Genji is more personality-driven, more social, more intimate. That, of course, leaves a lot out. This is an incredibly complex word. And this translation was on my mind about 10 years ago when Roy L. Tyler, who had translated the Tale of Genji, translated the Tale of the Heike. Now, the Heike is never going to catch on the way Genji does. That's never going to happen. But Viking came out with a very nice Roy L. Tyler translation of the Tale of the Heike. And I reviewed it for the National, I believe. It was for the National. Again, if I remember to find the review, I'll post it down below. You would think, since I love the Iliad and only like the Odyssey, you would think that my sentiments would fall exactly the same way, but not so. No, I absolutely adore the Tale of Genji, and I very much like Tale of the Heike, but it's not the same. But I had this on my mind when I was studying the Roy L. Tyler translation prior to reviewing it, because I was thinking about the choices that this translator makes. So it's great to have this. No problem at all in having two translations of the Heike. I think I have all four major English language translations of Genji. Then this next one, I believe I might have this. In fact, I might have a lot of these, because, as I mentioned, a lot of you have been very generous with your ebooks, to the point where I'm not immediately conversant in what I actually have. So it's possible that I have some of these things. That's okay. If it turns out that I do, I will either keep the physical copy and the ebook, or I'll get rid of the physical copy. I have right now, I don't know the exact number, and I'm not 100% conversant right off the tip of my fingers. If you were to take me to a used bookstore and show me a shelf of 100 books, I'm not 100% sure I'd be able to tell you with 100% accuracy which of those books I now have as ebooks. But I only want these things as ebooks. Mainly. I'll take a printed book, especially when the old instincts of acquiring books when you're out and about is hard to beat. But if you have, I mean, on 3 different iPads, I probably have 3,000 ebooks now, something like that, of all types and descriptions. Things that would be a passing whim for me, exactly the same thing as a used bookstore, where I see something that halfway interests me and I grab it as a passing whim. Stuff that I absolutely love, dearly love, and want to read or reread. I have books of all those kinds of descriptions. It's actually made me severely contemplate the one problem that I have encountered with ebooks, with this massive influx of ebooks in 2020, is where to put them. Because the one limitation on an iPad is that you can't give it external memory. You can't expand the memory. Now, I thought I was getting around that. I went out of my way. I documented all of this on this channel. I went out of my way. I got a 10-inch Kindle Fire. And I bought an SD card, a micro SD card, with tons of extra memory for it. Because you can expand the memory on that. And it doesn't work. It works just fine. It accesses the internet. I can watch YouTube. I can watch Amazon videos. I can do Twitter or Instagram or whatnot. But it doesn't do the thing I bought it for. It will not sideload books. It just won't. Even books in a Mobi format, which is Amazon's format, it won't sideload books at all. Now, I suspect that there's a way around that. I just haven't really deep dived into how. I haven't done the research to find out. I find it hard to believe that these things just don't do that anymore. I find it hard. How would the device even know you were sideloading something? I don't know. I haven't researched that yet because the sting of disappointment was so great. That I had this wonderful new device, and that Kindle is fantastic. You might remember I got an elaborate cover for it with a nice ring handle so I can handle it at all times. The device itself is incredible. The screen is really good. The battery life is unbelievable. You can leave it be for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks. You pick it up thinking, oh, well, there's something on this that I want to use, but I'd better charge it first. And you don't need to. You've still got 60% power. The one limitation that I encountered was the bitterest of all, because it was the reason I got the thing, and that was that I can't sideload books onto it, that I can tell. There's got to be a way. But aside from that, the limitation with my iPads, which is it's a miracle device, and I'm very familiar with the experience of an iPad, so I've been doing a lot of e-reading on my iPads. And the one limitation is that you can't expand the memory. So I'm running out. I have one of my iPads is completely full. I can't sideload even one book to it. And that has had me seriously contemplating another iPad where I solve the problem. Where I get an iPad with the maximum amount of memory, which really jumps up the price. That jumps up the price more than anything else. That feature does. But it would be an iPad where I could put all of these ebooks onto that device and not worry about it. And not have multiple devices where if I'm in the mood for, let's say, a 1977 Star Trek novel, then I have to think, oh, which of these is it on? Because it's on one, but it's not on the others. I may very well break down with the next sizable checky poo that I get. I may break down and get an iPad with like 250 gigs of memory, something like that. But in the meantime, I don't know if I have this particular book or any of these. No slight at all to those who are sending me ebooks. These were free. I had room in my bag, so I grabbed them. And this is an old hardcover copy of Hen's Teeth and Horse's Toes by J Gould, the late J Gould, who did a column called This View of Life for Natural History magazine forever, for like 30 years, and just collected them in an endless series of books. This was the second one in the popularly designed series. He did one called Mismeasure of Man. It was just a book. And then he did The Panda's Thumb with an eye-catching design, eye-catching font, and a cover illustration, just a collection of his columns. And that is when he and his publisher started to realize this could take off. These could be really viable commercial properties. And after that, it was. Every Stephen J Gould book was an event. And this is the second of those books. And I didn't remember off the top of my head. I think I have The Panda's Thumb in hardcover. I didn't remember off the top of my head if I had this one, and it was free, so I grabbed it. If it's a duplicate, I'll just put it on the next Brattle sale pile or whatnot. And it might also be a duplicate for an ebook, in which case it's going on the pile anyway. And this next one is fairly recent. This was from, like, I think 2015, 2014. And I read it and really liked it and got rid of it, and I want to reread it. I saw it and I wanted to reread it. It's a maddening, depressing story, but really well done. It's by Joshua Horowitz, and it's called War of the Whales. And it's about the U.S. Navy clandestine military experiments and whales in the open ocean. The military bombarding whole basins of the undersea world with high frequency sound, which wreaks havoc with the animals, with the cetaceans that live in those basins and navigate by sound, communicate by sound. And the author does a fantastic job. This is an angry book, but a very controlled one. And the end result, it's almost impossible for you to avoid the end result, which is that all of the mass strandings that we see for whales, where a whole community will strand themselves on a beach, is the result of that. It's the result of mankind. It's the result of the Navy filling the ocean with noise. I want to read it again, see what the nuances are. I really enjoyed it the first time. As far as biting, take no prisoners nonfiction goes, I just thought it was terrific. And then this last one also be a bit depressing. I've read this before as well. I highly esteem it. I think it's a great biography. It's just tiresome company, that's all. This is by Jung Chang, who did Wild Swans, and John Halliday. And it's their big biography of Mao, The Untold Story. Big, hefty hardcover. It's just a perfect hardcover, just sitting there in the box. So I grabbed it. I don't have it. I've read it, and I get rid of it, mainly because it's so incredibly depressing. But also because, no offense to these two authors, they do a fantastic job. Fantastic. Especially with Mao's early years, if I remember correctly. But it's no offense to them, but in addition to being a depressing story, it's also a boring one. Because if you have a full-blown murderous psychopath, what that psychopath is going to want to do is kill people. If you take a full-blown murderous psychopath and you give that psychopath uncontrolled, complete state power to compel, to make laws, to execute them, then what that murderous psychopath is going to do is just kill exponentially more people. It's not like they're going to change. They're not human. They're not going to change. They're presented with all these vast new possibilities of what to be and what to do and how to live. They're not going to want anything other than the one thing they want, which is to kill people. They're just going to kill lots more people, whole provinces full of people. And that, whether it's Mao or Stalin especially, or Hitler, it can get a little wearying, that's all. But I'm going to go at this again because I remember how wonderful it was. It's the split brain you have to have with great biographies of horrible people. You have to have a split brain in terms of enjoying the performance of the biography, even when you find the company of the subject incredibly tiresome. And I do. This is a case of that. But it is a major work, so I'll definitely give it another try. I'll give it another read through. And I'll add it to my biography collection. It should be there. And that was it. So it wasn't a huge number of books. It was as many as I could carry. I should have ignored them. I should have walked away, but I didn't. So this is our used book pile. Last one in a while. This is Mao, and then War of the Whales. We have Hen's Teeth and Horse's Toes, a collection of essays about evolution and life and natural history by Stephen Jay Gould. We have an earlier translation of The Tale of Heike, not Royal Tyler, but well worth having in addition to him. And then two H.G. Wells. We have The Shape of Things to Come and The Sleeper Awakes. Two H.G. Wells futurism novels explicitly predicting what the future would be like for a man who couldn't stop thinking about that sort of thing. So there you go. That is the Steve pile of defeat. That is what defeat looks like. Because I had planned, I had told myself, I had morally resolved not to get any books, and they fell in my lap. But having swallowed my defeat, I am now going to go. But I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.